Okay, I am recording this for my 6th period class, so just keep that in mind, guys. When we go through this, it's okay. So here we go. We are starting Unit 2. Unit 2 is, I like to say, like Unit 1 is understanding what numbers are. And understanding, if you were to equate it to math, it's understanding what numbers are. It's learning to count, 1, 2, 3, that sort of stuff. Unit 1 is if you don't understand what numbers are and you don't know how to count, then you can't do anything else. Unit 2, we're moving into addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Unit 3 is where we move into like the equivalent of algebra. Okay, so understand, and I tell students that because you have to understand that if you can't count, you can't do addition, right? And that's why we learn Unit 1. Now, Unit 2 is we're gonna start applying what we learned in Unit 1. Um, we're gonna learn about something called demand and supply, or supply and demand, depending on, some books say demand and supply, some books say supply and demand, but everybody always teaches demand first. If you went home and asked your parents, hey, I'm taking this class from Petmeki, what the heck is it about? They will probably use the term supply and demand or demand and supply. If that's the case, you know they're going to say that, then you know this is important. All right, this is, again, this course just builds on itself, and I just can't emphasize this enough, how much it builds on itself. So here we go. All right, so let's start off with the market. Okay, a market, by definition, is an institution or a mechanism that brings buyers and sellers together. A market does not have to be a physical location. eBay is a market. Amazon is a market. Yes, Kroger is a market. Okay, but the market for cars is not the car dealership. The market for cars is all the potential buyers of cars and all the potential sellers of cars. So a specific location doesn't have to be a market. If I'm walking down the street, one night, and this guy comes up to me, opens up his coat, and he says, "Hey, man, you want to buy a watch?" That's a market. He's a potential seller of stolen watches, and I'm a potential buyer, right? Maybe they're not stolen, right? And so a market is a mechanism. It's a way in which buyers and sellers exchange goods and services. I am sitting here right now in the factor market. Now, Parkview High School is not the factor market. Parkview High School just happens to be where I work. But when by working, I get paid. Me getting paid and them paying me is the factor market. Now, we said this in the last unit, moving on. Property rights is the key to any market system. You learn that in the last unit. Okay. Next, individuals respond to incentives. The main incentive we respond to is prices. When we go to buy something, we look at the price. Most people don't just go grab something, throw it in the cart. They look at the price. Now, if they're at the grocery store, you may grab milk without ever looking at the price because you know it's going to be within a range and you're going to buy it anyways because you need the milk. But some people look at it and go, "Oh, milk's expensive. I won't buy it today." Okay, they respond to prices, but we also respond to other things. Okay, we face these constraints, these things that keep us from possibly buying stuff. Income is definitely one of the biggest ones. Okay, you want to buy something, but you don't have the money to buy it. Other things could be time. Okay, right now I need to build a pole barn down at my land. I've got some land down south of here, and I need to build a pole barn because I just bought a tractor. Um, I've got the money. I have the income, the money right now to buy this pole barn, but I don't have the time to get down there. I've got to cut down a bunch of trees down there, big old trees, get my chainsaw out and cut them down. I got to remove the stumps, and I got to level the land. I got all the stuff I got to do before I can get the pole barn built. Right? So the income is not the constraint I feel right now, it's the time. Could be a legal thing. If you're under 18, you can't buy cigarettes. It could be regulatory. Okay, I want to get the COVID vaccine, but they won't let me get it because I'm not over 65. Some of y'all think I am, but I'm not over 65, right? I'm not a healthcare worker. So I'm being regulated. I can't get the COVID vaccine. Same thing with you guys. See, so we face these constraints in a market. Sellers also face constraints, and we'll talk about that when we get to the seller side. All right, here we go. Ba-ba-ba, huge concept. Demand. I'm going to define this for you. Demand is the number of units of a good or service. So let's stop right there. When we talk about number of units, it's how many. We refer to how many in this class as quantity. So it's the quantity of whatever good or service. Maybe it's pole barns, or maybe it's doctor's visits, or whatever, that a buyer is willing and able. You have to both be willing to buy it and able. To go back to the constraints, time and legal and regulatory makes me not able to buy whatever, right? So you have to be able to buy it. You also have to be willing to buy it. And then here's the key to the demand: at various prices. This is the key. This is the key to demand. It has to be at various prices, not at a specific price. So let me go tell you what that is. Now, I'm gonna come back to this. By the time you walk out here today, you'll feel a little bit better about this right here. Okay, I know right now you're going, what? What's he saying? What is this? I don't get it. You will. Okay, we have to work with it. We have to introduce it and work with it. All right. There's demand, and then there's quantity demanded. Quantity demanded is how many you would buy. So again, we're talking about a quantity of a good or service that you're willing and able to buy. Same definition so far, but this is at a specific price. In other words, I'm going to say, if it's $3, how many would you buy? If I say at $3, how many would you buy? That's quantity demanded. You with me? Demand is at various prices. Again, I don't expect you to have this right now solid. Just right now, what I want you to know is demand is at various prices. Quantity demanded is when we deal with a specific price. A specific price has a specific quantity. So let's use it a little bit, and then you'll understand it even more. So it's so funny because for years, for about 10 years, I've been joking with my students about this. I tell them that Gwinnett County is taking out all the water fountains. And the reason why they were taking out, my reasoning for why they were taking out all the water fountains is because of disease. And, drinking after somebody else, you can get sick. And so Gwinnett County decided to take out water fountains. And so if you want water, you either have to bring it from home or you have to buy it here at school in water bottles. And I would act like this was really happening. What's so funny about this is, you guys that have been here live, all the water fountains are shut off. We have no water fountains here at school right now. Okay, so it's kind of funny. This actually came to light. Anyways, so what I would do is I would tell them this story, and then I'd say, okay, but what if I decide to start selling water bottles? I'll bring them in my classroom. I'll have mice down in a cooler, and I'll start selling water bottles. And I would say, okay, if I was selling water bottles, how many water bottles would you buy from me in a week? So I'd put a time frame on it. In a week, would you buy from me if I was selling them for $5 a bottle? And I would ask the whole class this, and I would go from person to person. And most people would say none, 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 zero, 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 zero. They're all telling me zero. I'm not paying $5. They're not paying $5 for a water bottle. But occasionally, I would get one person say, yeah, I'd buy one, because if I forgot it, I might need a water bottle, so I would buy it, And everybody looks at him like, really? Are you crazy? You'd buy it for $5? Maybe he would. So if that were the case, if everybody said zero, then at a price of $5, the quantity demanded would be zero if everybody said zero. Or if that one guy says one, okay, so let's back up a little bit. My market is my class. They're potential buyers. I am a potential seller. So the market is, say, second period econ class. Okay. So at a price of $5, the quantity demanded is 1. I would then go in and say, okay, what about at $3? At $3, I might get a few more takers. A few more people say, well, the guy who said 1 for 5 would definitely buy at least 1 at $3, right? If he's going to buy one for 5, he would buy one for 3. And maybe I get 2 more people say yes, they'd buy one. And so at a price of 3, I'm right here, at a price of 3, my quantity demanded would be 3 units of water bottles. Quantity demanded is the number of units of a good, in this case water bottles, that a buyer, potential buyers in my second period econ class, are willing and able to buy at a specific price. The specific price is $3. And then I would go forth and I would say, okay, what about if it was $1? Now, $1, there's a certain number of people are going to go, well, yeah, that's actually kind of what it costs if I bought it at Kroger, and it'd be easier if I just bought it from you. Even maybe it's 75 cents at Kroger, but it's easier to just buy it from you. So yeah, I'd buy one. And more people say yes, and maybe the guy who would have paid $5 for one would now buy 4 of them. Okay, but we add it all together and we get 25, and we find out that at a price of $1, the quantity demanded is 25. And then I say, what if I was selling it for 50 cents? The quantity demanded would be 40. What if I was selling it for 5 cents? Okay, think about that now. Think about if there's no water fountains here at school and you knew Pet Mickey selling water bottles for 5 cents, how many would you buy from me in a week? Right? Think about that number. And if I added all of you guys together, I would get some quantity demanded. And suppose it's 100. Okay, so hopefully what you're getting out of this right here is that at a specific price of 5, there's a quantity demanded. Now, this whole thing is demand. This whole thing is demand. Let's go back to the definition of demand. Demand is the number of units of a good or service that a buyer is willing and able to buy. Okay, same as quantity demanded, but this is at various prices. Notice I have various prices. I have $5, $3, $1, 50 cents, and 5 cents. I have various prices. So this whole thing is demand. And when I draw this for you and graph it for you, you'll go, oh, now I kind of see what he's saying. You are not going to walk out of here today feeling comfortable. You're not going to walk out of here saying, I got this. You have to use it. You have to digest. You have to read through it again. You have to think about it. You have to process. This is a conceptual thing. It's a concept. It is not a memorization thing. You have to play with this. You have to digest it. You have to taste it. You have to smell it. You have to touch it. You have to think about it. You have to draw it. Okay? So this number, this price quantity combination, this square is what we call a demand schedule. Okay, it's a table that shows how much consumers are willing able to buy at various prices. And you go, wait a minute, didn't you say it's demand? Yes, we will actually draw the demand curve from the data in the demand schedule. So all this data put together is demand. Notice that as price decreases, what happens to quantity demanded? It increases. Okay. As price increases, if we go the other way, if we go this way, if we go up, start at 5 cents, go up to $5, then quantity demanded decreases. There's always this inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. It's called the law of demand. This holds true for everything that you need to know about in this class. There is exceptions to this thing. It's called a Giffen good. You don't need to know about it. They're not going to test it on the AP exam. Okay, a Giffen good basically violates the law of demand. Okay, and I'll talk about that at some other time if you want. When we have extra time, I'll talk about why and all that. But it's, for as far as this class is concerned, all goods. For you and me, it's going to be true for everything. For Bill Gates, maybe not so much. Okay, so the law of demand is the inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. Now, they call this, they'll actually use the term here, own price, meaning the price of that product. Own price is the price of that product. A little later on, we're going to find out that the price of Coca-Cola changing affects the quantity demanded of potato chips. Okay, that's something different. That's not own price. So if we're dealing with Coca-Cola, the price of Coca-Cola affects the quantity demanded of Coca-Cola in opposite directions.
Well, price is supposed to be what again? I'm sorry.
Price is supposed to be what?
Like, what is it supposed to be again? I'm a bit confused.
Price, when the price changes, the quantity demand, when the price, in this case, when the price increases, okay, right here, when the price increases, if you guys are listening on tape here, you can't hear the question. The question is to reiterate what's going on here. When the price goes up, the quantity demanded decreases. It's called the law of demand. Sometimes we won't call this price, sometimes we'll call this own price, meaning the price of this product, whatever product this is, in this case, water bottles. So when the price of water bottles goes up, the quantity demanded for water bottles decreases, and then vice versa. When the price of water bottles, the own price of water bottles decreases, the quantity demanded increases. I'm just saying you're going to see that, you may see that terminology own price. It just means price. So don't freak out about it. It's just the price of that product. That's all it's saying. Okay? Okay. So what we can do now, go ahead, ask.
I was just saying yes, sir, because you got silent.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to come in and we can draw this. We can take this demand schedule right here. We can take this demand schedule right here, and we can draw a demand curve. All right, so what you do is the vertical axis in this class is almost always going to be, in fact, the vertical axis will always be some sort of money. We're going to go ahead and label the vertical axis as price. We're going to label the horizontal axis as quantity. And what a demand curve looks like is it actually looks like this. I'm about to show you something in a minute. This is what an actual demand curve would look like. But we, from here on out, sorry, I'm going too fast. I know I am. Give you all a chance to draw this. Okay. From here on out, here's how we're going to draw this. Okay. We're going to take our axes. This is ceteris paribus. And instead of writing out the word price, because that takes too long, we're going to just put P. And instead of writing out quantity on the horizontal axis, we're going to just put Q. And instead of drawing a curve, we're actually going to draw a straight line. Why? Ceteris paribus. It's easier to work with a straight line. It's easier to do math when we're dealing with a straight line. Because you have a curve, you actually have to have calculus. And we label this as D for demand. So from here on out, and you will draw literally hundreds of these this semester. You will draw hundreds of demand curves this semester. I would probably say 200 or 300 of them. It's a very important concept. How many people have ever heard the expression, mind your P's and Q's? Yep. Mind your P's and Q's. I see people raising their hands. Mind your P's and Q's. It comes from economics. Make sure you have your prices and quantities. If you leave the P off, the whole graph is wrong. If you leave the Q off, the whole graph is wrong. If you don't label the D demand, I don't know what that line means, the whole graph is wrong. All semester long, labeling of graphs is vital. We will be having quizzes where you're going to have to draw for me. Labeling of graphs is vital. Okay? Now, had I gone back, this guy here, keep in mind, this demand curve comes from actual data. So for example, at $5, the quantity demanded See, that's what this is. The quantity demanded, whoops, was 1 in the data that I gave you back over here. At $3, the quantity demanded was 3. At $1, the quantity demanded was, what was it, 25. At $1, the quantity demanded was 25. At 50 cents, it was 40, and so on and so forth. So this demand curve shows the price quantity relationship. The whole curve, here we go. The whole curve is demand. Individual quantities is quantity demanded. So 3, at a price of 3 units is quantity demanded. At a price of 5, 1 unit is quantity demanded. But the whole curve is demand. So now let's go back. Demand is the number of units of a good or service that a buyer is willing and able to buy at various prices. In other words, when we do demand, this whole thing is demand. Quantity demanded is the number of units that a buyer is willing and able to buy at a specific price. So I could, on this graph, show a specific, if this is P0, this would be Q0. Q0 is the quantity demanded. At price 0, I give you a price of, and doesn't mean the price is 0, okay? At price 0, the quantity demanded is 0. In fact, I did something different. I'm doing something different this semester I've never done before, so I'm not going to worry about it. But let's change this. Doesn't matter. I'm just demonstrating here. Let's do this as P1 and Q1. Okay, just and I'll explain that in just a minute. Okay, what are your questions up to this point? Yeah.
So does that mean that like a specific, like, I don't want to jump ahead, but like, does this mean that like a specific on the like a specific point on the graph for demand would be the demand quantity demanded?
Yes, a specific point. Well, okay, so what that means is a specific point on a graph. So this point right here tells us both the price of $3 and the quantity demanded of 3 units. Okay. Just real quick, you guys are math nerds, okay? In economics, the independent dependent variables are switched. Okay, the independent variable in math, I mean, it's going to be in economics, is price, and we actually put it on the vertical axes. The dependent variable, the thing that depends on price, is quantity, and we actually put that on the horizontal axes. For math, they would switch these. They would put quantity on vertical and price on horizontal. You cannot do that in here, though. Follow the economics rules, not the math rules. Okay, there's a story behind people have various speculations as to why it's the case, but again, we're not getting into that today.
Mr. Clinton,
Yes.
this is back to like when you were talking about the scenario with the water bottles.
Yes, back to the water bottles. Go ahead.
Yeah, so about that, so you said like in its entirety, it's demand.
Correct.
Is that so? It's also demand schedule.
Okay, the entire thing, the charting of all the numbers is your demand schedule. You then take the information from the demand schedule to draw the demand curve.
So the demand is more of like the curve.
The demand is the curve. The demand is the curve itself, okay, where all the numbers on a table is the demand schedule.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, the way I said it, I said this is demand, it's actually the demand schedule, and from demand schedule you get demand. Okay, what else? Okay. Now, there are 3 reasons why the demand curve is downward sloping. Okay, and I'm going to go through each one of these. Income effect, substitution effect, and law of diminishing marginal utility. Let's start with the last one first. All right, because we've already learned it. The law of diminishing marginal utility, we learned it last unit, is that as you consume a product, you get less and less additional satisfaction out of consuming that product. And because of that, you're not going to want to buy it as much. You're not going to want to buy another unit as much because you know that by buying that other unit, you're going to get diminishing marginal utility. However, what if you go to the store and the price has gone down? You're still getting diminishing marginal utility, but the price has gone down. Because remember, you do everything as marginal utility per dollar. Everything you do is you're looking at the marginal utility per dollar, right? That tells you how many units to buy. So if the price goes down, you're going to buy more of that product, even though the law of diminishing marginal utility has occurred. But you're not going to buy more if they don't lower the price. And so why is this guy downward sloping? One of the reasons why it's downward sloping is because of the law of diminishing marginal utility. When they lower the price, you're willing to buy a greater quantity of that product. And vice versa. If they raise the price, you're willing to buy a lesser quantity. They have to lower it for you to want to buy more because of the law of diminishing marginal utility. That's reason number one. Reason number two has to do with what we call the income effect. And I know I've got it as one up here, but I want to cover diminishing marginal utility first. I think it's probably the easiest one because you kind of get it. Okay, yeah, they lower the price, I'll buy more even though I don't want it as much. You know, when I go to the store and buy, when we're running low on ice cream and I go to the store, I usually buy 3 gallons at once. I have a deep freeze. I bring them home. Why not 4? Because of diminishing marginal utility, right? It's like, well, having 3 gallons of ice cream in my freezer gives me a lot of satisfaction. Having 4, it's like, yeah, it just kind of takes up space, and I got to put it in the car, and I got to lug it in, and I got to go downstairs, put it in the freezer. It's kind of, it's diminishing marginal utility. But if it's on sale, I'll buy 5 gallons. They entice me to buy 2 more gallons when they lower the price because it's like, well, I'll put up with the hassle. I'll put up with the diminishing marginal utility to get those extra 2 gallons to save the money. All right. Second reason, again, now is the income effect. The income effect is that when they lower the price, you can now afford to buy more of that product with the same income. So you were going to the store and you had $10 and you were planning on buying bags of chips. And if they're $1 a piece, you can buy 10 bags of chips. On your $10, you can buy 10 bags of chips. If you get there and the price has gone down to 50 cents, you can now buy 20 bags of chips. You can buy more with the same income. So in other words, when the price here goes down, you can now buy more of that product with the same income. It's called the income effect. Third reason why it's downward sloping is called the substitution effect. The substitution effect is you now, when the price of one product goes down, you have the incentive to substitute that now cheaper product for something else because that something else is now more relatively expensive. For example, you were going to the store and you were going to buy chips for a party and you were planning on buying 5 bags of Cheetos and 5 bags of Tostitos. And you get there and Cheetos are on sale. Now, income effect says you're going to buy more Cheetos because they're on sale. But now you're like, gee, I'm having a big party. I can actually buy more Cheetos. So you buy quantity demanded more Cheetos and less Tostitos. Because you have an incentive to substitute the cheaper good for the other good that is now relatively more expensive. Tostitos is now relatively more expensive than Cheetos. Cheetos is relatively cheaper, compared to, relative meaning compared to. When we do that a lot in this course, we'll talk about relative. Okay, relative to this. One good relative to another. A Ford relative to a Toyota. And so the substitution effect says you have an incentive to substitute one for the other. And when you put all three of them together at the same time, bottom line is price goes down, quantity demanded goes up. Okay, and that again is called the law of demand. Price goes down, quantity demanded increases. Price goes down. Price goes up, quantity demanded decreases. Law of demand. Income effect, substitution effect, law of diminishing marginal utility is the reason why that occurs. Okay, what are your questions on that? Okay. Now, students get confused big time historically about the difference between a change in demand and a change in quantity demanded. So I'm going to just show you here the difference. All right. If you tell me there's been a change, let's say you tell me there's been an increase in demand, and this is what we're going to learn on Monday, this part right here. Anyways, just follow. This is your demand curve. I'll call it D1. Okay. This is a change in demand. When the whole curve shifts, that's a change in demand. Don't write this down right now. We're going to do this on Monday. This part of it we're going to do on Monday. All right. One of the big quote trick questions in economics is what happens when price changes. When price changes, it's a change in quantity demanded. Going back to my water bottle example, when the price decreased from $1 to 50 cents, the quantity demanded increased from 25 to 40 units. When the price decreased from $1 to 50 cents, the quantity demanded changed, not demand. Demand is the entire curve shifting. So right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you this on a graph. I'm going to draw a demand curve. Here's price, here's quantity, downward slope of demand curve. Draw that. If you haven't printed off the notes, you need to print off the notes and transport these graphs to those notes. Otherwise, you're going to have all these graphs. You're going to have any idea what they mean.
Are you including the one with the shift?
No, don't include the one with the shift. Just draw the one on the right. I don't want to erase it because I want to refer back to it in a second. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to decrease the price. Now, whenever I change these things, there's different ways of notating this. For years and years and years, I've always done my initial as P, then my next one is P prime, my next one is P double prime. This year, I'm trying to change that, where I'm going to do my initial as P1, my second one is P2, and if I go to a third one is P3. The reason why I'm changing is because the AP people generally use this when they do it. Okay, they may say label the initial one PE and the next one is PZ or something like that, but you just follow the rules, whatever they tell you here. But I'm going to try to do P1, P2, but if I do P and P prime and all that, you'll know what I'm talking about. So I'm going to start off with initial price, and I'm going to start off with initial price of P1. With that initial price comes a corresponding quantity. The quantity depends on price. And this is going to be my quantity demanded. I'm going to call it Q1. That's my quantity demanded at a price of P1. Now I'm going to decrease the price because I'm saying I'm going to decrease the price, and I'm going to go down to P2. That's a decrease in price. Let me do this. I need to erase this over here. Okay, that is a decrease in price. Notice the price is decreasing. I'm moving towards zero. This axis, this point right here is 0, 0. Okay, keep in mind we're in quadrant what is that, quadrant 1? We're in quadrant 1 at 0, 0, upper right-hand corner. That's 0, 0 there. So the price is decreasing. It's going closer to 0. Well, when the price decreases, quantity demanded increases. Law of demand. But I'm showing that now on the graph. I'm showing a decrease in price leads to an increase in quantity demanded.
Mr. Pratt,
Yes, sir.
P1 doesn't really, it doesn't mean the original. That's point.
Okay, great question. Okay, so the question is P1 mean the original? P1, in this case, it is the original price. Okay, I don't do P0 because 0 later on will be optimal in this class. It means optimal, and that's something a different concept altogether that we'll use later on. But it's the original one that we're starting off with. Okay, you have to go sequentially. P1, P2, P3, that sort of stuff. You could have gone P0, P1, P2. You could have gone P, P1, P2. But the reason why I don't use just plain P is because P is the labeling for the axes. P is the labeling for the axes, and Q is the labeling for the axes. Q1 is the original quantity, P1 is the original price.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay? Now, here's where students screw this up. This is the trick question. When price decreases, what happens to demand? Everybody think about that. When price decreases, what happens to demand?
It doesn't change.
And the answer is it doesn't change. The curve itself does not move. If you said that when price decreases, demand increases, you actually shifted the curve. You're telling me the curve shifts. The curve does not shift. We move along the curve. A change in price, you move along the curve. Monday, we'll find out what does shift the curve, because as you know, shift happens. All right, let's see if you can draw an increase in price. Normally, I'd be walking around the room, looking at your graphs and saying, you need to do this, you need to do this, but you need to make sure you can do this. You're going to have to be able to draw hundreds and hundreds of these this semester. So I'm going to give you about a minute and a half here to draw an increase in price. So when you're done, go ahead and look up so I can see you. Just so you know, no rulers. Please don't get a ruler out. It takes way too long to use it. You don't need a ruler. You got to freehand this. It doesn't matter if it's not perfectly straight. No, you know, just draw it. Just draw it freehand, okay? And it's always so funny because the first time you draw one of these, it takes you like, a minute and a half. You'll get to where you're going to draw these things in 3 seconds. All right, so let me go ahead and show it. First of all, you should have labeled your axes, P and Q. If you didn't label your axes, take off 107 points. Downward sloping demand curve, label D. If you didn't label D, then it's just a line. It's not a demand curve. In this class, every line has a proper label. Every line has a proper label. We're going to increase the price, so we got to start off at some price. I'll call it P1. And with that price cause a corresponding quantity, Q1. And then I'm going to increase the price to P2. And with that comes a corresponding quantity, Q2. And then something I would like you to do, as a grader, I've seen this save students many a time. show the arrow, show the increase in price leads to a decrease in quantity. That is an increase in price leads to a decrease in demand. Hang on a second. Sorry, my phone is going off and I'm just trying to turn it off and I actually answered it instead of turning it off. Okay, any questions on this? Wave your hands in the air if you got it right. Okay, if you missed something, you probably just did a labeling error. Okay, this is something you're gonna have to get really, really, really good at. Okay, I'm gonna go and stop the video here and then I'll talk to you guys here. So I'm these things.